morning. Welcome to the Simply Real podcast. I'm so happy today to have a very special guest with us today on the Simply Real podcast. We have Dali from Dalitalks, which is a parenting coach specializing in bullying awareness and education prevention. I'm really excited to have this talk today with Dali. Considering everything that's going on in the world, educating our children, being aware of how we can truly stay in tune and aware about what our children are doing, and the education is so important. Welcome, Dali, to the Simply Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Oh, I'm so blessed to have you. I'm just so excited about all these great things that you are doing. Tell us a little bit about Dalitalks. I took a look at some of your videos. Your Instagram profile is up to par. It's amazing. You're doing a wonderful job. Tell us how this all started.
Oh, wow. That started years ago. My firstborn started school, elementary school. She was 5 and she was bullied. So when I asked for help, nobody provided the help, and they kept telling me, oh, we just can't do this, we can't do that, we have to follow the policy, we have to follow protocol. But I was like, well, what do you mean? Because I see this big old banner hanging over the school entrance that says no tolerance for bullying, and here you are, my child is being bullied by 3 kids. The main child who was bullying her was also 5 years old. So the way that it happened was pretty much the little 5-year-old asked her out. She said no. And every time we'd walk, my husband and I would walk her to the bus stop. We started noticing that the 5-year-old and his 2 older brothers were getting very aggressive. And the 2 older brothers were pretty much bullying him by telling him, like, you got to show her, you got to show them that you're tough, you're the man, you're a real man, and all this stuff, right? And he's 5, let him be a child. The 2 brothers were not that much older. They were 7 and 9. So, they kind of terrorized all the kids on the bus. And when I submitted the complaint, the bus driver said, well, nobody would corroborate what was going on because they were all scared. And so that's when I went to the principal, and the principal said, oh, that happened on the bus, not on school grounds. Therefore, I can't do anything about it. And I was like, what the heck do you mean you can't do anything about it?
Exactly. That's their job. That's their responsibility.
Right. You hired them. Therefore, in my opinion, you're responsible. So yeah, it took actually until the beginning of the second school year for it to all be resolved. And what I did was I just dove into research about bullying and the school's policies and all that. So I started educating parents throughout the years. And then finally in 2017, I decided to create the Diversity and Anti-Bullying Academy. And I decided to include the diversity element because that idea that these children have, that most kids have, that they feel like they kind of have permission to pick on people and to bully them, is when they don't understand their differences. Just like these little boys, they were thinking, well, you got to show these girls who's the man, like toxic masculinity, and they had this false notion of what is tough, and they didn't see girls as tough. So I make sure that I teach about that too. But I want to clarify that when I teach, I'm not teaching the children. I'm actually teaching the parents. And the reason I do that is because after many years of volunteering at schools, I realized that parents are not getting this education. Some kids are, and they honestly, from what I've seen from years of going through to so many schools, they get a surface level type of education about bullying awareness. They don't go in depth. So I do the in-depth part with the parents, and I give them tools, examples, whatever they need to be able to have this conversation with their children so that they become the teacher. Because when it comes to something like this, we're talking about it, say, around the dinner table, kids are listening to the parents.
Right.
And if you use your own stories, your own way of speaking to, have this conversation, they're going to remember. So that's what I do. I empower the parents. And aside from that, I teach them also how to advocate with the school, through the school for their child. Because the other thing that I found out is that, like me, when I started, I had no idea that, there was a anti-bullying policy. I didn't know if there was an anti-bullying program, which are two separate different things. I didn't know that there are so many variations of how bullying is defined.
Right. That's a lot of information to just take in. And I'm sure like being mobilized by this because of your own experiences, and just getting up and being so motivated to really make a difference. I commend you for all of that. But like you're just saying, I'm sure there were so many challenges in just getting this up and running. How did you sort of navigate your way around learning what to do and how to reach out and how to just build that foundation so you can start empowering parents like you are?
Thank you for that question. I think that like coincidentally, when I decided to go into the research, I was in my master's program, of course, doing research. So, and at that, my degrees in women and gender studies with a concentration in social policy.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, this is cool because it's not, it's not like public policy, but it's close.
Right.
So that helped me a lot. And I started sharing the information at the PTA with the parents and having conversations with friends and family. And then eventually, years later, my husband actually was like, hey, you got to stop giving this away for free. You got to go and pitch
it work.
Yeah. He was like, pitch it to the principals. And he actually set up my very first appointment. And it didn't go so well, but I decided to reach out to the school district's family engagement center. And I said, hey, will you let me pilot this whole program over the summer? It was like 6 weeks. And she was like, sure, all I want is, no compensation except for like raw data. I want the info, the feedback from the parents. And the classes were so packed. It was 9 a.m. and I didn't think anybody was going to show up because, summer, who's going to want to get up?
Right.
And it was for the parents, but they brought the kids. And I was so surprised.
You just got to believe in yourself, believe in your dreams. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty much what kind of catapulted the business itself to like, oh, okay, I do have something here. And I just began working with different organizations. And now I've been hired by small business development centers. I'm talking about, bullying within the workforce and within entrepreneurship. I've been hired by Texas Women's University because they have programs for the community, and Arizona State University for teacher training, as well as like little organizations here and there, libraries, and many other types of organizations. But I also do the consulting with the parents and coaching 101. And I have online courses. I have a workbook for parents and teachers. That's, just to get the conversation started, because it can be so overwhelming. And it can also be a very hard topic to talk about, especially
it is to communicate. It's really difficult to just bring up that topic. And I know you mentioned just now, not to cut you off, but you were just, before I forget, you were just saying that you have, I guess, strategies in how to open that conversation up. I would love for you to share what some of those strategies are. Just, for parents listening in, how do we start those conversations with our kids about this?
So you can do anything fun because, it is a dark topic. So books, I have a ton of resources. If anybody is wondering what type of books to start, because you can start it as young as possible. Like as soon as if you're already reading to your child and they don't even know how to speak, just the type of books that you choose are very important. And you just keep that going, right? That consistency. And of course, as they get older, then you can start by sharing your own stories about kindness and about having been bullied, or maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was your cousin or your sibling. Right. You can use the media, like television shows. There's so many examples. I can think of like, Ants, the movie, plenty of
that's true
in there, or in the Marvel movies. I mean, there's so many different things that you can point out. It's like, oh yeah, that's is not bullying. You can just weave it in as naturally as possible instead of just sitting down and saying, hey, we're gonna have a talk about bullying. It's like no kid's gonna listen.
Right.
Yeah,
turned off immediately.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can even use music because sometimes the lyrics or maybe the videos of those music, of the songs, they have, certain scenes in there that you can use it. You can talk about current events, like the thing with Will Smith and Chris Rock. Was this?
So okay, I'm so glad you brought that up. This kind of weave that into the conversation. Would you consider that a form of bullying in some way? And is that something that we see amongst celebrities a lot? And is that something that our kids maybe are being influenced by because of social media, because of TV? What are your thoughts about that?
So the definition of bullying varies, right? The federal government has not declared one official definition because it's pretty complex. Some people might call that bullying, but bullying defined by most organizations, they have, variations, but most of them say it's pretty much an unwanted aggressive behavior. It is consistent. There is a power imbalance, or there's a potential of power imbalance. It is perceived as a threat, right?
Right.
So would this scenario with Will Smith be bullying? Probably not, because it happened that one time, but then we don't know what else has been going on, right?
Right.
So if you have had these debacles, on and off for years, and then maybe one of them said, hey, you got to stop it, and then it continues, then yeah, that would be bullying. Some definitions, depending on where the definition comes from, they might include that one occurrence is not considered bullying, but there are others that do. So it's really important that when you go to your school and you're reading that definition, you understand what they consider bullying, because if it doesn't fall, whatever happens to your child doesn't fall under that definition, then they really pretty much won't be able to help you, because they'll say, well, that's not considered bullying.
Oh my gosh. There's so many nuances that parents have to navigate, and it's so complicated sometimes, I feel. But you're giving us a great rundown of how to do that. And you brought up sort of another good point that I wanted to just step into a little bit. So bullying, and is there a connection with mental health? And have you sort of assessed that a little bit? And what are your thoughts on how you are sort of combing through that issue? Because some kids maybe come from a home where they're dealing with some issues, and maybe that's why they're lashing out, or they're dealing with mental health issues. How is that being sort of integrated into your approach while you're putting all these great programs together?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So the short answer is yes, definitely. There is a correlation with bullying and mental health, and not just on the person who's victimized, but actually all parties involved, even the witness, the bully. And there's a study, it's a little old now, but it was in 2015 when it was presented by it was in conjunction with the criminal justice system and the Department of the criminology at the University of North Carolina. They found from the results of years of following certain kids, that children aged 12 to 16 who were followed for 14 years or so, they showed that if they have been bullied before a certain age, that is the age of 12, I believe, they had a higher likelihood of negative mental health issues, and ending up in the criminal justice system. And then kids who were bullied before the age of 12 and after, the number of those issues went up even more. And the American Psychological Association, year after year releases results from their studies that there's a lot of depression, anxiety, there's a lot of behavior issues, and even some bullicide has happened. And a lot of people don't understand what that word is, or they've never heard it, but it's pretty much suicide due to bullying. And it's really hard to track that one, right? Because when the reports from the coroner's office comes out, number one, the information of minors who die or have anything regarding minors is private. So researchers can't really collect that data. Number two, it is sometimes mislabeled. So it might be considered a hate crime, or maybe gang related, or something other than bullying.
Right.
So yeah, it's really, really hard to track those numbers because of those reasons, but there's definitely some mental health impacts on children. And so one of the things I do to help parents is teach them like, hey, these are the resources that you have. And we're like, boom, 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 these are it, right? Which one of these do you want to try out with your child? Because you don't have to just go with one and stick with it. If it doesn't work, move on to the next one, but there are many options. And the ultimate goal is to help your child not be traumatized for life about this, to be able to move forward in a healthy way. And lastly, to not define themselves as the victim.
Right.
Because a lot of kids will internalize a lot of those negative things that happen to them or that are said to them, because bullying isn't just physical. And a lot of people prioritize physical bullying over any other type because it's the most obvious one. Schools prioritize it because it's the most obvious, and it carries the highest liability, right, for lawsuits. When you think about verbal bullying or emotional bullying or social bullying or even cyberbullying.
Right. I was just going to step into that. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, I have a whole class on cyberbullying alone.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big thing. And I love how you're breaking it down, because it's really important for those listening in right now to understand there are different types of bullying, not just the physical bullying, but the mental bullying. And now getting into the cyberbullying and social media, that world is opening up so much. I mean, I remember growing up, I didn't have any of these problems growing up, with social media, but nowadays it's a little bit different. Have you put together some initiatives for that to specifically, focus on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've done so many workshops on this. But cyberbullying can happen to anyone. And when parents say, well, I'm not going to worry about my child having a device that gives them access to the web right now because they're too little. Well, we don't worry just about cyberbullying from, say, or by a friend, right, or by a peer from school. We need to worry about other types of bullies, like people who bully them into sending nude pictures or doing something inappropriate, or even accessing an inappropriate site just so that they can blackmail them. The average age a child in the United States bumps into pornography is between 7 and 8 years old. That's that's really, really young. So think about that, because kids are going to Google whatever words they hear on TV or from their friends. So if they Google sex, or if they Google hoe, or or prostitute, because they're just innocently wondering, they can end up in some sites that you don't want them to be on. So you have to know before you give them a device, are you committed to keeping track? Are you committed to buying a monitoring tool that can help you block certain things and also like get a report on their activity? Because again, it's not that you think your children are doing anything wrong. It's that that they're kids and
they're curious.
Right. And they also don't tell you everything, because sometimes they're like, well, I don't want to bother them. They're already going through that, or this is embarrassing. I don't even want to tell my mom and dad.
Right.
So yeah.
You got to feel comfortable. Now, you mentioned with the devices, there are certain monetizations that you can do, like there's certain locks and things like that. Just for people listening in, can you tell us, like, what are some of those things that we can do to help prevent our children from typing in those things or for it coming up? I think there's some blockers on some of these devices, right?
So the devices like iPhone and Android, they pretty much have mostly settings. So the difference between a monitoring tool and a setting adjustment is that the setting, you're pretty much telling your phone that between this hour and this hour, your children will not have access to the entire phone, or that you're blocking only this app or that website or whatever, A monitoring tool does way more than that. Now monitoring tools, they have a variety of prices, and also ways that they can help. Like some of them, all they do is help you adjust everything, the settings and everything, plus give you some details on like text messages, who they were texting. Some of them are extremely detailed, where they'll send you an entire report of like who they were talking, what the conversation was about, like the transcript, everything. And if you're interested in just finding out, where to start, where to buy one, you can either go to Google and type in best monitoring apps, although I do have a freebie, a sheet with price